create in the batch, and you have to put on it batch wise. And what happens whenever you are running the query from the one batch, because size of the small of this batch,
Sannasi.
then it is recurring the more.
I am a Google developer expert, and
I hope
in
you
my main job I do data engineering.
And again,
AI
you try,
engineering,
and if you want to explain
and a
more
couple
about
of
it, you
related
will link
things
it. I
like
will
AI
try
and
this all in the
stuff
depth.
like that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Today we are all excited about AI agents, and we want to build everything with agents and AI. So, and if you are working in data, or if you are working with business analysts or business people, they are going to ask a lot of data questions, and a thought may come to your head like, okay,
actually,
why not build an AI agent for answering
Flutter
some of those questions?
mobile application.
And
it will never charge.
Initially,
but
it may
after
sound
that, Google
easy,
getting amount.
but once you get in, there's going to be a lot of challenges.
If you are running an app,
so what I'm going
which
to talk
available
today
in
is
everywhere,
about how you build
that
an
not
agent
means mobile
and
app
what are the
will
various
run in the
steps that
offline.
you can
Sometimes it
take
will on.
to ensure
Sometime it will on.
that your agent is
And
production
after
ready.
that, you can put your
Data agent. When I say data
advertisement.
agent, this
Many
is an
apps
agent
you are
that
running in
actually
your game
queries
application,
your database,
running offline, but
gets the
whenever you go
answer,
into the
and,
internet, automatically
gives
start
back
the
to the
ad.
user.
This is the main source of the
So the talk is about
but
how
problem is
you
that
optimize
another
it,
API, what
optimize
if I'm using making a chatbot
the
for the
data
student
access
has, suppose the
and
student
the
has some
output.
doubt, and
So
he want to immediately get the
that's
answer,
what my talk
like
is
a
about.
summarize the essay,
So what we'll cover
mathematical
today is
question,
like
scientific
just
equation.
foundation.
Then
Just
I
we'll
depend
try
on
to
the
get
internet. Right now,
some
solve the
introduction
problem,
about
but at
natural
least this
language
app
to
can just solve
SQL,
your problem.
and
when
a
it will
very
come in
brief
the internet, it
introduction
will show
on
you advertisement,
ADK,
and you will get the money.
and then we'll go into the
This is the
prototyping
one other
and
really model.
what are the various
A lot
steps
of
that
option
you can
another,
take
like
to
you can use the Google
productionize
agentic
your
application. Some model features are available
So
offline, some features
NL to
are
SQL
online.
is
So they
basically
can automatically switch in the
something
internet.
that where the agent has the ability to take human input, a user input, and then convert it into analyze the input, go to the database, get information about the table structures and everything, and then generate an SQL and execute it. So this is how it is. Like human asks in an NL to SQL system, analyzes and generates the query, and then finally the query is executed.
For training, yes.
For training, yes, but for
And a very one
using
slider on agent development kit, Google's agent development kit, in case you have not come across that. So agent development kit is a Google,
Well, it will
is
learn,
developed by
but
Google,
with
but it is
latency.
open source and it is used for
With
building
latency.
agents. So it is available. You can develop with Google ADK in both Python and Java. So Java SDK is still upcoming. Python is much more mature, but Java is still upcoming. But if Java is your preferred language, still there is a choice that you can use. And it is built on LangChain and LangGraph. So because it is open source, you can go and have a look at what the underlying code. And when you look at it, it is based on LangChain and LangGraph. So traditionally, if you, before ADK or before any of these
Google
alternatives,
ADK.
like I have also
Google
listed
ADK,
alternatives.
you can multiple
Other than
agents.
ADK, there is
And give the
2AI,
task
then
only for
Microsoft
the
Agent
one model,
Framework,
like
and
here
also
one model,
with
perform one
OpenAI,
task,
it is
second
the
model, perform
OpenAI
second
Agent
task.
Kit. So
But yeah,
prior
this is
to
true.
any
Whatever
of these,
you are doing anything
then you
else,
have to
if
use
you have a CPU
LangChain
and
and
2 GB
LangGraph,
RAM, then it will
and
create the latency.
code your
Doesn't matter
code your
any
agent,
type of tool you are using.
where you have
So
to
one
give
thing you
detailed
can do
instructions
only,
on
train
what the
this model
dependencies
in
are, which agent comes first, which agent runs first, and which next, and how those interact. Whereas with ADK and the other alternatives that I have listed here, it is much easier to develop agents.
And you can upload in a Hugging
Okay,
Face.
so let's just dive into.
And from the Hugging Face, you
dive
can use
into
it in
Meetup.
offline mode.
So let's say you have thought okay, you look at the stock, or you
It
just
depends on the environment.
go and find, okay, I can build an agent. So my users are asking a lot of questions.
It's a hosting
And
platform.
I can build an agent to answer those questions because I learned about NL to SQL. So let me go and do those. And you have developed a very simple one. Probably it will take a few hours for you to develop. And you just go, okay, now you want to impress your boss. You go to him or her and say, okay, now I have developed this. And you ask a question and we can get an answer very
You just
easily.
train this model.
And then
just train the
the
model,
boss says, okay,
and model will create
tell
a
me how
plugin.
many customers we have.
In a Flutter,
And the output,
you put all the plugins.
agent might say, okay,
So model
there are
will create a
241
plugin
orders.
in a
Which status
546 KB already.
So obviously,
So just
the
a
question
simple
and
MB
answer
and KB,
are not
just
related.
create a
So you
plugin,
have the wrong
and
question
after that
answered,
you
it
can
has
download
answered
the
about
set this
orders.
plugin in your mobile application, and it
And
will
241 orders, you don't know
because
whether it's true or
quantization
not.
method will work.
Even if the 241 orders are there,
Whenever
in the
you are
database,
trained,
don't know.
it's not
So
a
it is
using the
basically
quantization
hallucination. And
when you are
it doesn't
trained in your
confidently say
resources
that.
and downloading in your system,
So basically,
then it's
it
using
is
concatenation
wrong,
method.
but
So compress
this
the
is what
size.
you are getting, and you are going to look very, very bad in front of your boss because you claimed something, and
Because in a
now
plugin, it will
whatever
download in
you
a plugin, you will get the
have is
answer.
not fit for purpose.
LLM available in
So
your
basically, your
mobile.
trust is destroyed. But when you are working with data and when you are giving information to your business users,
Yeah, sure.
mistakes are really
9300.
really real. So it's not like okay, a toy application that okay, something goes wrong and no one cares. It is extremely important.
Yeah.
If you are giving a output to the user and that is wrong, the user is never going to trust your system again. Every output they are going to be doubtful if the answer is right, if the response is right or not, and they think okay, I can't be bothered to use the system. Let me just go and use how I was doing before, and there's going to be less adoption going forward. And also from a business perspective, you're giving wrong data, which means based on the data, if some decision is taken, that is going to be incorrect. So that's no good, and especially if you are working in a in a regulated environment. Say, let us say you have to send a report to SEBI and you have asked a question and the answer is wrong and you have sent it to SEBI, then there's going to be much more bigger implications than just the user not being happy.
By the way, LinkedIn, I'm really.
And of course, there's some wastage of cloud resources. That is a small thing when compared with the other impacts you see. And from a technical perspective, if you are a AI engineer, so which means basically if you're not getting the right answers and the users are coming to you, okay, this is not right, that's not right, then you have to be continuously firefighting, trying to improve it, and then it just goes on and on. It is going to be frustrating for you as a technical person and for the business user as well.
Sure, why not?
So with natural language to SQL, the few things which are very difficult is like bridging the language gap. So natural language is ambiguous. So English, you are inputting in English. In the south of India, you may write in one way. In the north, they may write in different ways, and different countries have slightly different dialects of English. And again, the business terminology as well. Even within the same company, if you are asking a finance guy, what is my sales, he will give a different answer or he needs a different answer. And if it is a marketing guy, it may be a totally different answer. So those sort of challenges are also there. So you have to know the context. The agent system has to know the context of the question. And also once you build your system, then you have to deploy it into production and you have to make it scalable. So these are some of the major challenges. So let's start simple with a baseline agent. So this is what I would say, okay, you were not taught about anything. There's a table or a bunch of tables in your database and you decide, okay, I want to build an agent. So this is the flow. So user asks a question and the request goes to Gemini, to an agent, to a model. Let's say Gemini 2.0 Flash in this case, and the agent decides it wants to use the tools to find what are the tables available in my database, then get the table information, and then build a query and execute it. So in this case, we are using a BigQuery dataset, and then once the query is executed, the information comes from your database. Then it is converted. Then LLM picks it up and says, okay, I will convert it into a natural language response. It's all good, but when you're doing very simple queries, yeah, this works reasonably well. But when you want to go into production, this may not be the case. So what do you have to do? So this is not something groundbreaking or anything. It is like if you are a software developer already, then you know you have to have fixed tests. You have to run the tests every time you make changes. You have to rerun the tests and continuously monitor it whenever you make changes. So that's exactly the thing. And just like, for example, when you're doing a unit test, you are going to say give an input and then an expected output as well. So it's very similar. So you say, okay, what is the prompt, and then you say what the expected answer is, and then the expected tool. So you have to build a data set like this. So For example, you can build like, when I did this POC, I did 25 questions. I used 25 questions and put in various answers for that. So this is how you evaluate. So for evaluation, the first step is like you build a data set, evaluation data set. And then what do you measure? So you have built an agent and you want to evaluate how good the agent is. So there are many more things you can measure, but some of the most important things are factual error. Is there a factual error? So if you're asking number of orders, is the number of orders returned by the query correct? So that is the factual error. Then factual accuracy and completeness. So if the output is complete, so if you are asking a couple of questions and is the output cover all the questions and are they factually accurate? And the other one is the tool trajectory. So what is tool trajectory is basically when you ask a question to the agent, it will be using a number of tools to get you the result. So are the tools being called in the right order, or all the tools required being called to get the correct result? So and are they being called in the right order? So you can define all those things. For example, here you have to say, you have to get the table information before executing the SQL. There's no point in executing the SQL and then going and getting the table information. So when I did the base thing, yeah, so the SQL generation, some of them were successful, very simple ones were successful, but a lot of them failed. And a lot of them had syntax errors because it was just picking up the wrong table or using even wrong column names. So I don't know where it got it from, where the LLM got it from, probably from its own training set. It got a lot of columns for my request, and there were, like, I would say around 40 to 50% of the queries failed. And also the answers were not of good quality. They had a lot of hallucinations and they were not complete, and a lot of wrong answers because the query itself was not built correctly. Even if the query was correct, syntactically correct, the actual query was not right. And because of this, the agent calls, if an SQL query generated fails, it just retries a new SQL query. So which means there are a lot of API calls being made to the model, made to the database. So which means unnecessary data processing and a lot of high cost. So basically, with all this, you cannot move this to production. So when I analyzed a lot of errors, I just came up with these 9 or a few more as well, but I just put these 9 things where the agent breaks. First is the lazy agent. So you are giving a query. The agent is supposed to go to the database, get the schema, and build the SQL. But many times it didn't bother to do that. It just thought, okay, yeah, I know if I'm asking sales, I know, okay, what sales is. I know some sales table structure because I have a lot of data from my training data set. And then it just says, okay, I'm gonna use those columns rather than going to the database and trying to find the correct schema. So it was being lazy there. And then, of course, like as we already discussed, it was overconfident and lying, giving the wrong answers, and being confident, saying that. And sometimes it was using functions that you don't want them to use. Say, you don't want to use approximate functions, you want the accurate answers. So that was another problem that I saw with all the failures. And even more annoying, even those other three things are a bit understandable, more annoying is the calendar. So you are asking, okay, give me sales figures for July, and when you look at the SQL generated, it will say July 1st to July 30th. It would just ignore July 31st. I don't know why, but that's what happened. So that is something that you have to look at as well. And again, so you know, if you have worked with SQL, you know the SQL is case sensitive, like especially the SQL strings are case sensitive, and often it used to generate queries which are of wrong case, which means the output is wrong. And a few more, like SQL amateur. So it doesn't know some of the advanced functions, and even even some of the functions that doesn't exist, it hallucinates and generates. And from a context perspective, there are a few things that it understands. For example, it doesn't understand Indian states. When you say, give me states, geographically it just picks up the states from US. So that's often a trouble. It's not just with the states. There are a number of other things where, based on its original training set, it is very much American or at best European. So for Indian context, you may have to make a few changes or give proper instructions. And also, it was not giving the right. It was actually extracting much more information than needed from the database sometimes, or sometimes much less. So if you're asking for just 1 or 2 columns, you'll end up with 10 columns. That's another problem. And another major thing, very, very important thing, is inconsistent performance. We know, like LLMs, when you are giving a prompt, every time you are going to get different results. You can't rely, it's not deterministic. But with SQL, which is where you are expecting deterministic answers, this is a big issue. So it just every time you get different results for the same prompt. So what can we do about this, and how do we address this? So you can think of it in 4 stages. So which I call the 4-layer strategy. So the first, the layer 1, you look at the environment to ensure that the environment is all, especially around the metadata. I would say metadata is the main thing here. So that is the foundation. So that's where you start. And then the next level, you look at the models, you look at tuning the models, you look at and then you choose the right model that works for you. And once you have the model ready, then you can look at the system instructions. What prompts you send to the LLM for querying the database. And after this, then you know an important thing. When in production, you want to make sure it is secure, the application is secure, and also you know exactly what the application is doing. So you log things. So that's important. So you do these 4 steps. And it's not like you do these 4 steps one after the other and you leave there. You repeat it. You go back to 1, 2, 3, 4. So it is kind of, if you want to tune it better, you have to go through this process multiple times. Not just when you are developing, even once in production, you have to follow these 4 steps. So the first layer, so the metadata. So if you are just having a table defined in your database, which is called orders here, and then you just have these columns. The agent doesn't really know what each of these means. It can interpret it based on its own training data, which may not necessarily be right. So the agent doesn't really know what each of these are, and especially the status. What are the valid values of the status? You don't know. The agent doesn't know. So what you do is you provide a metadata. When you define the table, you add additional metadata, or the metadata for each, like you give the table description, you give the column descriptions and stuff. So this is the first step. So once you do that, the agent understands the context. So once I added the context, added information about the tables, and I tested it again, the wrong answers became less common, because now the agent understands what each of my table columns mean, and based on that it will generate the better queries. And because of that, the query success rate is much higher, and the agent uses the context much better. So whereas before it was all worse than this. So here what we have done, we have not done any changes to what the agent definition. All we have done is go and updated the metadata, and that's all we did, and we have a much better result. And as I told you, you can try more changes. For example, in this one, you can give, if you want to give additional information about the order state, you can provide. So you can try with more metadata to see whether you get better results. So once you're happy with the metadata, then you go to the next level. So you can choose different models. Here I have just shown Gemini 2.0, 2.5 Flash, and 2.5 Pro. Beyond this, you can use with ADK or any of the other open agent kits, you're not restricted to a set of models. You can use OpenAI's models here, or you can use Llama, or you can use like what was the previous talk was about Gemma. So you can use Gemma as well. So any of the models you can use, and you can actually look up for compare against each of those. Here I have chosen Gemini 2.5 Flash because that is faster than 2.5 Pro. And it was not, the performance was not much different in terms of the generated SQL and stuff. But there was a huge difference between Gemini 2.0 and 2.5 with the quality of outputs that it generated, just for information. But you can use any model here. So I just said, okay, the sweet spot was 2.5 Flash. The reason for 2.5 Flash is it's fast as well as it is cheaper. So now that you have gone through this, you can go to the next level. So these are various parameters that you can use: the temperature, top P, thinking budget. So these are sort of parameters that you can try to tune. Once you have chosen the model, you can try to tune these parameters. So with temperature, the output SQL is going to be much more reliable or much more predictable, much more deterministic, because you have given a low temperature. And again, the same with top P, because it is going to look for less number of word choices. It is going to generate the same SQL, or hopefully the same SQL over and over again. And again, the thinking budget, you can, where I have given the maximum reasoning, which is only in Gemini 2.5, and you can give the thinking budget so that it understands the same thing, and you will get better SQL output. So with this one, you got more consistent and deterministic queries, and it was also able to reason for complex questions. So not very basic questions may not matter with especially the thinking budget, but if you are asking a very complex question, that does matter.
Okay.
So we don't want to, so the very basic thing is we don't want the creative SQL that varies widely. So that is where we set the temperature to 0.1 and top P5. That doesn't mean these are the only values you have to test, and these are, you can try out other parameters
By
as
the
well
way, we're
as
talking
different
about
parameters or
distribution.
different values of these
I can't
SQL.
say anything because I am just a
And you don't
guest
try with
here.
just one model based
I
on
don't
previous
know
selection.
anyone
You are
except
not
you,
just
organizer
doing
of this event.
with 2.5
So if
Flash.
you want to talk
I would
about the
personally suggest you do
resources
with
and
the other models as well.
about the help or anything else,
So what we have done so
I think
far
the
is
best way you
we
connect
have been able
organizer.
to
He is a very nice
use the
guy,
metadata
and he can
and the
help
model
you actually,
and
because
trying
he
out
is from
various
here
models, and
and
with
he is
this
running
there was a
application
huge
from the
progress
Coimbatore.
with the
So
quality
he
of
is
the
the
output.
real right person to help you. And
So
if you were talking
the
about
third
the
layer
funding, resources and other
here
things,
is
so I
like,
just suggest,
okay, this
just
is,
as giving a suggestion,
I did mention
you
to you
just
earlier, like before
find
ADK
a new
or before
partner
without
which
using the
actually
agent
can
kits,
help
you can
you
use
find
LangChain,
it,
LangGraph for
and
building your agents.
it
So
will be
in
a
that
help for
case,
you,
you
because
have to
alone you are
define
finding
every
everything.
time
It can be
what
very
function to call,
difficult
what
for
tool
you.
to call.
If you have an
Whereas
idea,
with
then after that you need a partner
agent,
to
you don't have to define the tools. The agent is capable of identifying the tools.
This is my suggestion.
But
Because obviously, if you are running
ADK is not
application
that great, to be
idea,
honest, with
so obviously many people
identifying
running
the
their
right
idea
tools,
along.
especially in
If you
the
have a
NL to
partner
SQL
about technical or business,
domain.
so you can find
So that is something that you have to
investor,
remember. Though
you can
feature-wise,
find
it
funding
says
and
yeah, it can
technical
identify the
support
tools.
very fast. If you
On a
are
practical
choosing any
level,
one of
till now it has not
the
been great.
business or technical.
And this was even worse in Gemini
That's it.
2.0.
And
With
second thing, if you are running your
2.5, the tool
application,
usage
then
was a lot
obviously you
better.
will, in the
The
first
identifying
phase,
the
obviously you will
right tools was
find
a lot better.
very struggle, hard to find the funding,
So
hard
what you
to
are
find
supposed
the
to do, like
resources,
what
yeah.
you
But
are
you solve
expecting
those just note
the
down the
agent
all
to
problems
do
one by
is
one.
start with
Try
a
to
stable
solve your
ID so
one,
that it
when
can
you
go,
done
when
and
you
come to
ask
the
a question,
second,
it can
then
go
it will solve
to
your
the
problem
database and
actually.
get a list of all the tables,
Otherwise, I am in the
and
LinkedIn.
and then identify the
So I
tables that are
can
relevant
get
to
your
the
help.
query
Sure, I will.
to your question, and then get the table information
Okay.
of those, and then
Same
build your
here.
SQL and execute it. But it doesn't do it. Like I mentioned before, ADK is a little weak in identifying the queries. It just makes some assumptions, because the way ADK is designed is to minimize tool usage. That works in some scenarios, but in this scenario, in an NLTSQL scenario, that is bad. So here you can actually, at the top, I'm just saying, okay, all these tools, how you have to execute the tools. Start with list table IDs, then get table info, and then execute SQL. And then I'm giving a number of other rules as well. What SQL queries have to be generated and what the response guidelines are. And here I'm saying do not hallucinate. But I'm not sure if it really takes that instruction. So once you do these three things, it became a lot better. Wrong answers were rare, tools were used correctly and consistently, and the output was predictable, a lot more predictable. So basically now there was a prototype when we started. After we went into these three layers, three functions, three steps, it's much more production ready now. So now we know the functionally it is okay, but that is not the only thing. You want to make sure there is security. LLMs can, you can do prompt injection in LLMs. You can ask some weird questions and the database may give out information that is not relevant for the user and which the user is not supposed to see. So you have to look at the security, and also it's not just about the security. You also want to log all the information, all the queries that come in, all the questions that come in from the user, what the SQL generated was, and if possible, the answers as well. So based on this, you can look at if your over time, if your agent is performing the same as when you deploy to production. And this again is nothing new. It is like a general software engineering thing that we normally do. So it is important to have observabilities, and with observability, you can use callbacks, ADK callbacks. Let's see, yeah. So within ADK, I'm sure other tools, other agent kits have very similar things, but I'm just going to focus on ADK now. So you have a number of callbacks here. So before agent, after agent, and again before model and after model, before tool and after tool. So you can use these. For example, the before agent callback, you can before the agent is called itself, you can check if the prompt is okay, if the prompt doesn't have any is likely to produce any unintended results, whether it is relevant to what we want. And before the model is called, we can just inspect the LLM request. Based on that, whatever is being generated, we can inspect the LLM request and see if it is okay, or if you want to modify something, or you want to just exit. And again, you can also check the tool arguments before calling the tool, and after the tool is called, you can capture the execution metrics, and in the after agent callback, you can log the output. And it's not just there you log the output. If you want, you can log the output in any of the steps. So this is how the ADK helps in monitoring your prompts, the outputs, and everything. So I would say these are the important things for production. So you have to try using SQL parameterization to prevent SQL injection. And if you are using BigQuery, for example, you can use write mode as blocked, so that no data can be changed via. Okay. So no data can be changed via the agent, because you don't want that to happen. And you ensure that there is the IAM, the BigQuery securities are done well. And also you want to control the cost. So before you execute the query, find out how much it is going to cost. In case of BigQuery, then it is based on the number of bytes. So you can go into the number of bytes and see, okay, if this many bytes are there, using one of these callbacks, before tool callback, you can say, okay, this query is going to use this much, like 10 terabytes of data, and I don't want that to happen. And of course, the visibility, where I just discussed about logging things. So this one was based on a single agent, and agent being and the BigQuery tool being called internally. Instead, you can use an MCP as well, so which means multiple agents can use the same MCP toolbox to ensure that the security and authorization are all centralized and in a single fashion. So this is another way of doing it. So here, this is the complete transformation, I would say. Like you started with an unreliable agent, then you added the metadata, it improved a bit, you chose the correct model and did a proper configuration, it improved further, and then you gave explicit instructions, so that is the system instructions, and in addition you can also inject user instructions as well, even for depending on who the user is. So you can inject explicit instructions, and then you have the security layer and observability layer. So this, once you get through this, then you're much more confident that your agent is performing better, good for production. So it is not just, so what we saw was for just a single agent, but it doesn't. All the work was done by a single agent, like getting the user request and finding the tools, getting the tools, generating the SQL and executing. Everything was done in a single agent. But instead, you can also use multiple agents. So you can have a requirements agent, a metadata agent, a and a SQL generation agent, a validation agent, and a result summarizer. So it is what a single agent was doing. You can have multiple agents, which means you can actually do a much more complicated or much more complex system as well. So where each of these agents will do the tasks, which means where you can configure and customize it a lot better. So when we think of NL to SQL agents, we always think about a user bot, chatbot. So where the user comes and types the query and gets the response. It doesn't generally have to be that way. You can also have this agent as part of a workflow. Where let us say you are building a data pipeline, there are a few steps that has happened, and then you call this agent, for example, to do a quality check or to generate some reports. So you can call this agent and then get the output. So that is another way you can use data agents. Data agents doesn't always have to be chatbots. And even more exciting thing is agent to agent. So you can expose this agent to the agent universe. So any agent can actually call our data agent to get the information and pass it back. So these are, don't think data agents means it's always chatbot. It can be used in other ways as well. So I think this is the last slide. So what we have done is like started with a prototype which was giving incorrect answers. We evaluated it systematically, built the defenses, layer your defenses. Basically, we changed the environment, model, instructions, added safety layers and stuff, and also ensured that ADK we provide some explicit information, and added observability so that it is more trustworthy. And also we discussed very briefly about multi-agent systems for the same use, and also what other ways you can use your data agent. So this so what I would say is like don't think like this is an approach only for ADK. Think of it as an approach where, as a general framework, it can be any model, even any sort of application. It's not just an NL to SQL application. It can be any type of application. You take similar approach, and I can guarantee that you'll be much more production ready. So that's what I would say. And that's all. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, yeah, please scan and send a connection. And yeah, if you have any questions.
So, your presentation was mostly focused on Google's agentic development kit. So, does this work with other databases? Like I use MongoDB for my primary data store. Can it work with that?
Yeah. So the concepts are the same. You can have a different database, any set of databases, any models, any agentic system. The concept is the same. So you have to go through these steps. And there may be additional steps in a different model, or there may be like I did mention ADK is not good at using the right tools. So there will be some nuances based on the model and the database, but the conceptually it is the same. You have to follow the same process.
Does this workflow also apply for like on-device, like you build a mobile app, Android app? Can you apply all these workflows to work inside an Android app?
Yeah, so this whatever I described was primarily around developing. So you develop it and then move to production. And one or two things for evaluation, of course, you have to do in production. And those things, yes, of course, you can do within an Android app as well. But again, it depends on what sort of application it is. But in principle, yes, you can do some of these things.
Thank you.
Hi sir.
Hi.
I had a very good time with your lecture, and you really honest, sir. I appreciate that. So you told about that ADK is optimized for using the tools, like keeping the usage of tools very minimal. So do you think like would we be able to all those things? Because anyway, it's the most typical way is they would have used implicit prompting for that. So do you think we can alter that in some way so that we can overcome this disadvantage for ADK?
So what you mean is like whether we can get better tool usage.
Yeah.
So the reason ADK doesn't use tools, or I would say doesn't use tools, or minimizes the usage of tools, is for cost reasons. So that is how it has been built. So one of the ways is by giving explicit prompts.
Yeah.
And again, because it is open source, and if you fancy, you can go into the code and make changes to it.
Yeah.
So it has been designed for a reason. Unfortunately, for this particular application, that is not great.
But I just don't know if there's a way to alter that.
Yeah, so it's basically system instructions does help to alter.
Yeah. Okay.
And of course, as I told you, if you want to change the source code and use it,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
you can go ahead and use it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Hi sir. So my question is, you mentioned about the centralized MCP toolbox. So having a centralized configuration and authorization for the agents. So how can we build that?
So you mean how to use MCP?
Yeah. So how to use the MCP for if I have multiple agents? So I'll be using like multiple MCPs like GitHub and Jira and something like that. So in Cursor we can connect multiple MCPs. So how can we build our custom toolbox so we can connect multiple MCPs?
So one of the things I've used is the MCP toolbox for databases, which is the Google's. So it runs on a particular port. You start the MCP in a particular port, and then you can direct your questions there. So that's how you use it. So and because it is centralized, it comes through a single window. So which means you can centralize many of the configurations so that you don't have to repeat it.
Thanks.
I hope I answered your question.
Okay, I do have one question. Right? I'm going with the use case about. So user uploads a PDF. So they need to.
Sorry, can you repeat?
So I'm going with the use case. So use case is like so user uploads a PDF. So they need to scan the PDF. I need only the 10 fields from the PDF. So for example, the PDF is supported about using the images, tables and all. So okay, approach using the different multi-models into the page libraries. You mentioned about the role to work class, pro, and all, about the SQL query. So how can I approach using the multi-models into the specialist?
So when you when you're building the application, make sure you can use any model, and you can call that respective model. So that's all I can think of.
Okay, I'm asking like which model can I use for this?
So there's no right and wrong answer because it keeps evolving. So when I started this project, it was Gemini 2.0 was the latest one, but now we have 2.5. So you go for that. So it depends on what you are using. I think with PDF, I think OpenAI does well, as well as Claude also does well. Personally, I would say unless you have, even within Google, you have a document AI. I don't know if you are Are you on a Google ecosystem? No, no. Are you on Google ecosystem? Your application? Okay. So check for document AI. So you can upload, you can send your PDF to document AI API, and there are a lot of processes. So if, for example, if you are uploading an invoice, it already knows how to parse an invoice. So I think that would be a good way to do it if you are using Google ecosystem, because that is quite effective. That's what I have seen. But if you don't want to use Gemini and you want to go with something else, then you have to look for special ones there. If you are in Google ecosystem, Document AI will be a good place to start, and a reliable place as well, where you don't have to try to configure it, because many of the configurations are already in place. It may be slightly more expensive than using your own application, but at the end of the day, you are spending a lot of time in development there, whereas a lot of time is already, a lot of the development effort will reduce if you are using Document AI. Make sense?
With that, we come to the end of the query session. Thank you, sir. As a gesture of appreciation, we would now like to present a memento to Mr. Sathyaram Sannasi for his engaging and insightful session on Beyond the Prototype. I request Mr. Kishore to kindly come forward to do the honors.
Thank you very much, everyone.